She thought she was just a waitress surviving on tips and prayers for her dying grandmother's medical bills. He seemed like nothing more than a quiet office worker who left generous tips and spoke in whispers. But when Yuna Park agreed to that blind date, she had no idea she was walking into the crosshairs of the most dangerous Korean mafia boss in Los Angeles, a man whose enemies would soon paint targets on everyone he dared to love. What started as spilled coffee and stolen glances would spiral into a deadly game where protection meant possession, where love meant becoming leverage, and where the only way to survive was to choose between her hard-won independence and the man willing to burn down the entire city to keep her breathing. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't the monster hunting you, it's falling for the monster everyone else fears. Subscribe and tell me in the comments if you've ever fallen for someone whose world was completely different from yours, because this story is about to get darker than you can imagine. The cardiac monitor's steady beep fills the emergency room cubicle. Yuna Park sits beside her grandmother's bed, counting each rise and fall of the frail chest beneath the hospital blanket. "Heja's stable now, doctor," Moreno says, pulling back the curtain. But this was close. Her heart can't handle much more stress. Yuna felt relief mixed with terror. How long before she can come home? 2 days minimum. We need to adjust her medications. Dr. Moreno's voice was gentle but firm. And she'll need more frequent monitoring. The words hit like stones. More appointments meant more time off work. More time off meant less money for rent. "I understand," Yuna said. After Dr. Moreno leaves, Heja's eyes flutter open. Her grandmother's hand finds hers, paper-thin fingers surprisingly strong. "Stop worrying so loud," Heja whispers. "I can hear your thoughts from here. I'm not worrying. You're calculating bills in your head." Heja's smile is weak but knowing. "The money will come." "It always does." Yuna's chest tightened. The money never just came. She earned every dollar through double shifts and careful budgeting. But arguing with a woman recovering from chest pains seems cruel. "Rest now," Yuna said. "I'll be back tomorrow morning." The bus ride home takes 40 minutes. Yuna stares through smudged windows at Los Angeles sliding past. Koreatown's neon signs blur into streaks of color. Her phone buzzes. A text from her coworker, Minji. "Girl, you have to try dating again. My cousin knows this sweet office guy. Super gentle, makes good money. 1 coffee. Please." Yuna deletes the message without responding. Men meant complications. Complications meant chaos. She'd learned that lesson 3 years ago when her ex-boyfriend's gambling debts brought dangerous men to her door. The apartment building's fluorescent lights flicker as she climbs to the 3rd floor. Home is a studio with a Murphy, bed and a kitchenette that barely fits 2 people. But it's theirs. Yuna sits at the small table and counts the day's tips. $43. Not enough to cover tomorrow's parking at the hospital. Her phone buzzes again. Minji, persistent as always. 1 coffee. He's nice. You need nice. Yuna's fingers hover over the keyboard. She types and deletes 3 different responses. Finally, she sends back a single word. Fine. The next morning brings the familiar rhythm of the diner. Galaxy Cafe sits on the edge of Koreatown, serving American breakfast to Korean families and Korean comfort food to everyone else. Yuna ties her apron and checks the coffee stations. The morning rush starts in 10 minutes. She needs every table to tip well today. "You look tired," says Carlos, the line cook. "Your grandmother okay?" "She will be." Yuna refills the sugar dispensers. "Thanks for covering my tables yesterday." "No problem. Family first, right?" The bell above the door chimes as the first customers arrive. Yuna grabs her order pad and gets to work. By lunch, her feet ache and her uniform smells of bacon grease. She's refilling water glasses when a man slides into booth 7. He's well dressed in a quiet way, dark suit, no flashy jewelry, hands that look like they've never done manual labor. She approaches with coffee pot raised. "Good afternoon. What can I?" Her hand shakes as she pours. The hot liquid splashes across the table, missing his cup entirely. "Oh God, I'm so sorry." Yuna grabs napkins, mortified. "Let me clean this up." The man pulls a clean hand towel from his jacket. He hands it to her without a word, his movements careful and deliberate. "Thank you." She mops up the coffee, embarrassed heat climbing her neck. "I'll get you a fresh cup." "No need." His voice was quiet, accent barely noticeable. "Tea would be better." She brings green tea and takes his order. Bulgogi bowl, no extras. He eats in silence, occasionally glancing around the restaurant with eyes that seem to catalogue everything. When he finishes, he leaves exact change, plus a $50 tip. Yuna stares at the bills. $50 for a $12 lunch. "Excuse me," she calls, hurrying after him. "This is too much." But he's already gone. Through the window, she sees a black sedan pulling away from the curb. The hospital visit that afternoon goes smoothly. Hajar looks stronger, her color improved. "Doctor, Moreno approves the discharge for tomorrow morning. Someone left flowers," Hajar says, nodding toward the windowsill. A small arrangement of white chrysanthemums sits in a clear vase. No card, no indication who sent them. "Must be from the church ladies," Yuna said, though she doesn't remember mentioning which hospital to anyone from their congregation. That evening, she meets Minji at the coffee shop near the university. Her friend bounces in her seat, excited about playing matchmaker. "His name is Jay," Minji says. "Works in business, management, quiet type, but in a good way. Not like those guys who talk just to hear themselves. I don't know about this. 1 hour. If it's terrible, you can leave." Minji's voice was persuasive. "He's already here, actually. Corner table by the window." Yuna follows her gaze and freezes. The man from the diner sits alone, hands wrapped around a steaming mug. He looks up as if sensing her attention. Their eyes found each other across the crowded cafe. Recognition flickers in his expression, followed by something that might be amusement. "That's him," Yuna said, her voice barely audible. "You know him?" "He came to the diner today," Yuna's breath caught. "Left a huge tip." Minji grins. "See? I told you he was nice." Yuna walks to his table on unsteady legs. He stands as she approaches, a gesture that seems automatic rather than performed. "Yuna," he says. "Please, sit." She takes the chair across from him, hyper-aware of his presence. Up close, his features are sharp, but not harsh. There's something careful about the way he moves, as if he's containing energy behind stillness. "So you're Jay," she said. "And you're Minji's friend who doesn't date." Heat climbs her cheeks. "She told you that?" "She mentioned you were selective." His voice was neutral, giving nothing away. "I appreciate honesty." They order coffee. The conversation starts cautiously: work, the weather, favorite places in the city. He answers her questions without offering much beyond what's asked. "What kind of business management?" she said. "Import logistics. Nothing exciting." He sips his coffee. "You've been at the diner long?" 3 years. "It's flexible with my grandmother's schedule." Something shifted in his expression. "She's not well?" "Heart problems." "But she's strong." Yuna's chest tightened with the familiar worry. "We manage." 2 men at the counter grow loud, their voices carrying across the cafe. One points at a young woman sitting alone, makes a comment that turns other heads. Jay's attention shifts toward them. The quality of his stillness changes, becomes focused rather than relaxed. The men approach the woman's table despite her obvious discomfort. One leans down, invading her space with a smile that makes Yuna's skin crawl. "We should go," Jay says quietly, but he's already standing, moving toward the confrontation with measured steps. Yuna follows despite her instincts screaming to avoid trouble. "The lady seems busy," Jay says to the 2 men. His voice carries despite its softness. "Mind your business, office boy," the larger man sneers. Jay steps between them and the woman. He doesn't raise his voice or make threats. He simply stands there, hands loose at his sides. The men look at him more carefully now. Something in his posture makes the larger one take a half step back. "We were just leaving," the smaller man mutters, pulling his friend toward the door. They leave quickly, the bell chiming behind them. "Thank you," the woman whispers. Jay nods once and returns to Yuna, who's watching with a mixture of admiration and concern. "I didn't ask for a bodyguard," she said as they walk outside. "I apologize." "Old habits." "What kind of habits?" But he doesn't answer. Instead, he walks her to the bus stop, maintaining a careful distance that somehow feels protective rather than distant. "Can I see you again?" he asked. Yuna felt torn between attraction and wariness. There's something about him that doesn't quite fit the office guy description. The expensive suit, the way those men back down, the careful way he moves through space. "I don't know. One dinner, somewhere public." His voice was patient. If you're not comfortable, we can end it there. She studies his face in the streetlight. Whatever secrets he's keeping, they don't feel malicious. And she needs something good in her life right now. Okay, she said. One dinner. He waits until her bus arrives, watching from the sidewalk as it pulls away. In the side mirror, she sees him standing there until the bus turns the corner. The next morning brings Hijah home from the hospital. Her grandmother moves slowly but steadily up the apartment stairs, pausing twice to catch her breath. The flowers were beautiful, Hijah says as Yuna helps her settle into bed. Whoever sent them has good taste. Probably Mrs. Kim from church. Maybe. Hijah's voice was thoughtful. Or maybe you have a secret admirer. Yuna felt heat in her cheeks. I'm going to make tea. In the kitchen, she notices scratch marks around the door's deadbolt. Fresh gouges in the metal that weren't there yesterday. Her chest tightens with sudden fear. She checks the lock twice, tests the chain, peers through the peephole. The hallway appears empty, but on the floor inside the door sits a small silver pin, decorative and unfamiliar. She picks it up, turning it over in her palm. The design is intricate, a stylized bird with spread wings. Yuna, Hijah calls. The tea? Coming. She pockets the pin and puts the kettle on, but her hands shake as she measures the leaves. Someone was at their door. Someone tried to get in, and they left this pin as a calling card. She thinks about the man from yesterday, Jay, and his quick intervention at the cafe. The way he carried himself, alert and ready. Maybe having someone protective in her life wouldn't be such a bad thing. Her phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Dinner tomorrow? There's a Korean place in Westwood that's very public. Jay. She stares at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. The smart thing would be to stay home, keep her head down, avoid complications. But the scratch marks on her door suggest complications might be finding her anyway. 7 o'clock, she types back. I'll pick you up at 6:30. I can meet you there. A pause. Then, of course, I'll text you the address. She looks at the silver pin again, its metal catching the kitchen light. Whatever it means, she has the feeling her quiet life is about to become much more interesting and possibly much more dangerous. The next evening, Yuna arrives at the restaurant 10 minutes early. She chose her only good dress, simple black, appropriate for work or dinner dates. Her reflection in the window shows a nervous woman who's forgotten how to do this. Jay arrives exactly on time, wearing the same quiet elegance as before. He spots her immediately, as if he'd been watching the entrance. You look nice, he says, holding the door open. Thank you. The restaurant is busy enough to feel public, but quiet enough for conversation. They're seated at a corner table with a view of the street. Yuna notices he positions himself facing the door. Security habit? She asked. Something like that. He opens his menu but keeps glancing toward the windows. What do you recommend? They order banchan and bulgogi, falling into easier conversation than their first meeting. He asks about her work, her grandmother's condition, her plans for the future. His questions feel genuine, not rehearsed. What about you? She said. Family. His hand stills on his water glass. No, not anymore. The silence stretched between them. Yuna recognizes the weight of loss in those words. I'm sorry. It was a long time ago, but his voice was tight with old grief. You're lucky to have your grandmother. She raised me after my parents died. Car accident when I was 12. Yuna's chest tightened with familiar sadness. Some days I think I'd fall apart without her. You're stronger than you think. How would you know? You worked 2 jobs to pay for her medical care. You went to college while supporting her. You turned down help you probably needed. His eyes found hers. That takes strength. Minji told you all that? Some of it. The rest I can see. There's something unsettling about being observed so carefully, but also oddly comforting, as if someone finally notices the effort it takes to keep everything together. Halfway through dinner, Yuna's phone rings. The hospital's number makes her stomach drop. I have to take this, she said, stepping outside. Miss Park, this is Dr. Moreno. Your grandmother's having chest pains again. She's asking for you. Yuna felt panic flood her system. I'm on my way. She returns to the table, grabbing her purse. I have to go. Emergency. Jay stands immediately. I'll drive you. You don't have to. It's faster than waiting for a cab. She doesn't argue. His car is parked nearby, a dark sedan that's expensive but understated. He drives with the same careful precision he brings to everything else, navigating traffic efficiently. At the hospital, Hejai is stable but pale. The episode was minor, likely brought on by adjusting too quickly to the new medications. "I'm fine," Hejai insists, but her voice was weak. "Just dizzy. Doctor?" Moreno keeps her overnight for observation. Yuna settles into the bedside chair, prepared for a long night. "You should go home," Hejai says. "Get some sleep. I'm staying. Then at least thank that young man. He's been waiting in the hallway for 2 hours." Yuna looks through the door's glass window. Jay sits in the corridor, jacket folded over his arm, hands clasped patiently in his lap. She joins him in the hallway. "You didn't have to wait. I wanted to make sure she was all right. She will be. But thank you. For the ride, for waiting." Yuna felt gratitude mixed with confusion. "I don't understand why you're being so kind. Does there need to be a reason?" "In my experience, there always is." Something shifted in his expression. What kind of experience? The question hangs between them. Yuna thinks about her ex-boyfriend's debts, the men who came looking for payment, the fear that followed her for months afterward. "The kind that teaches you to be careful," she said. "I'm not going to hurt you, Yuna." His voice was steady, certain, but certainty from strangers often meant the opposite of safety. "I should get back to her." He nods, standing. "If you need anything, a ride home tomorrow, help with bills, call me." He hands her a business card. The paper is expensive, the printing simple. Just his name and a phone number. "I can't afford to owe people favors." "It's not a favor. It's..." He pauses, searching for words. "Taking care of people who matter." "I don't matter to you. You barely know me." "I know enough." He leaves before she can ask what that means. Through the window, she watches his sedan pull away from the hospital entrance. Back in Hejai's room, her grandmother is pretending to sleep, but her breathing is too careful, her stillness too deliberate. "You can ask," Yuna said, settling back into the chair. "He likes you. We've had 2 dates. 1.5, really. Some people you know right away." Hejai's voice was soft but sure. "Your grandfather was like that. I knew after one conversation. This is different." "How?" Yuna can't explain the feeling that there's more to Jay than he's showing. The expensive clothes, the confident way he handled those men at the cafe, the careful attention to exits and entrances. He feels complicated, she said finally. The good ones usually are. The next morning brings Hejai's discharge and a return to routine. Yuna goes to work, grateful for the familiar rhythm of orders and coffee refills. But she finds herself watching the door, half expecting to see Jay's quiet figure in booth 7. He doesn't come. At closing time, she's wiping down tables when movement in the alley catches her eye. A man stumbles from the shadows, clutching his ribs. His face is bruised, eyes wide with fear. "Please," he gasps, seeing her through the window. "Help me." Yuna unlocks the door cautiously. "What happened?" "They found me," said. "I talked too much." His voice was shaking. "I need to call." "Call? Who?" But he's looking past her now, relief flooding his features. "Hyungnim." Yuna turns to see Jay approaching from the street. His stride is unhurried, but something in his posture makes the injured man straighten despite his fear. "Seo told me you were here," Jay says to the man. His voice was calm, but Yuna hears steel underneath. "What happened to your face?" "Kwon's people. They're asking about the girl." The man's eyes dart to Yuna, then quickly away. "I didn't say nothing, I swear." Yuna's breath caught. "What girl?" Jay's expression doesn't change, but she sees his hands tighten slightly at his sides. "Go home, Minho," he says to the injured man. "Get that cut looked at. But Hyungnim, go." The man bows slightly and disappears back into the alley. Yuna stares after him, her mind racing. "Hyungnim means big brother," she said slowly, "but not like family, like respect, authority." Jay doesn't deny it. "Who are you?" she asked. "Someone who should have been more careful about your safety." Before she can respond, a black sedan pulls up to the curb. Not Jay's car, this one has tinted windows and an engine that purrs with expensive power. 2 men get out. They move with purpose toward the diner's front door. "Back exit," Jay says quietly. "Now." But Yuna's feet won't move. This is her workplace, her safe space. These strangers have no right to invade it. I'm not running from my own job. Yuna. The front door opens. The men enter with smiles that don't reach their eyes. The larger one wears a suit similar to Jay's but flashier. Gold watch, silk tie, shoes that probably cost more than Yuna makes in a month. "Mr. Ryu," the man says to Jay. "Out for coffee?" "Mr. Kwon." Jay's voice was perfectly level. "You're outside your territory. Business brings me everywhere these days." Kwon's eyes find Yuna, traveling over her with obvious calculation. "And who is this lovely lady?" "Someone under my protection." The words hang in the air. Yuna feels the ground shift beneath her feet as she realizes what she stumbled into. "Protection?" Kwon laughs, but the sound holds no warmth. "That's a strong word for a dinner date. Choose your next words carefully." The temperature in the room seems to drop. Kwon's smile fades as he studies Jay with new attention. "Of course, I meant no disrespect." He turns to Yuna. "Miss, you work here?" She nods, not trusting her voice. "Beautiful place. Very. Accessible." His smile returns, sharp and predatory. "Anyone could walk in. Day or night." "We're closed," Yuna manages. "For now." Kwon heads toward the door, his companion following. "Enjoy your evening, Mr. Ryu." "Miss." "That's far enough," Jay says. Kwon pauses at the threshold. "I'm sure we'll see each other again soon." After they leave, silence fills the diner. Yuna sinks into the nearest booth, her legs suddenly unsteady. "Korean Mafia," she said. "It's not a question." Jay sits across from her. "Yes, and you're what they call a boss." The simple honesty hits harder than elaborate explanations would have. Yuna stares at him, this quiet man who makes good tea and leaves generous tips and apparently commands fear and respect in equal measure. "The flowers at the hospital," she said. "That was you. I wanted to make sure she was comfortable. And the pin. Someone left a silver pin at my apartment." She pulls it from her pocket, sets it on the table between them. "That was them." Jay's expression darkens as he examines the pin. "Kwon's mark. They wanted you to know they'd been there. Why? Because people who cross me lose things they care about. Family. Friends." His voice was heavy with old pain. "It's how they maintain leverage." Yuna felt anger rising above her fear. "I didn't ask to be leverage. I know. This is my fault." "Damn right it is." She stands, pacing to the window. The street looks normal, cars passing, streetlights casting familiar shadows. But everything has changed. What do they want? Me to remember my place, to stop expanding into territory they consider theirs. And, if you don't, they'll escalate, try to hurt people I care about. The weight of those words settles over her. People I care about. When did that happen? When did a waitress from Koreatown become someone worth protecting by the most dangerous man in the city? "I can't do this," she said. "I can't be part of this world." "I understand." His acceptance makes it worse somehow. She wants him to argue, to fight for whatever this is between them. Instead, he reaches into his wallet and pulls out a card. "My private number," he says, placing it beside the silver pin. "If anything happens, anything that feels wrong, call me. I won't be your responsibility. You already are." The quiet certainty in his voice makes her chest tighten. "I didn't ask for that. Sometimes things choose us." He stands, straightening his jacket. "I'll make sure they understand you're not involved. And if they don't listen, they will." He moves toward the door, then pauses. "Lock up carefully tonight. Take a different route home." After he leaves, Yuna stands alone in her empty restaurant. The silver pin catches the overhead light, a small reminder that safety is an illusion. She picks up both cards, the business one and the personal number, and slips them into her pocket next to the pin. Outside, engines start and fade into the Los Angeles night. But she has the feeling this is just the beginning, the feeling that her quiet life is about to become a battlefield, and she's standing directly in the crossfire. The next morning arrives grey and subdued. Yuna makes breakfast for Heja, trying to pretend everything is normal. But her hands shake as she measures rice, and she keeps glancing toward the door. "You're jumpy today." Heja observes from her chair by the window. "Just tired. Tired people don't check the locks 3 times before coffee." Yuna's breath caught. Her grandmother notices everything, always has. "There was some trouble at the restaurant last night." What kind of trouble? Men asking questions, making threats. Yuna sets down the rice cooker. Decision made. We might need to stay somewhere else for a few days. Hija's expression grows serious. These men, they're connected to your young man? He's not my young man. That's not what I asked. The direct question hangs between them. Yuna thinks about lying, protecting her grandmother from the truth. But Hija survived the Korean War and 40 years of raising a stubborn granddaughter. She can handle honesty. Yes, Yuna said. They're connected. Then he'll handle it. How can you be so sure? Because he has something to protect now. Hija's voice was calm, certain. That changes a man. Yuna's phone buzzes. A text from Jay. Everything all right this morning? She stares at the message, thumb hovering over the keyboard. Part of her wants to ignore it, to pretend last night was a nightmare. But the scratch marks on her door are real. The silver pin is real. Fine, she types back. Going to work soon? I'll have someone watch the restaurant. I don't want your people following me. They won't interfere. Just making sure you're safe. She wants to argue, to insist she doesn't need protection, but the memory of Kwan's predatory smile stops her. Okay, she sends finally. At the diner, everything feels different. She notices things she never paid attention to before the alley entrance, the clear sightlines from the street, how exposed she is behind the counter. Carlos greets her with his usual smile. You look tired. Late night? Something like that. The morning passes quietly. A few regulars, some tourists, nothing unusual. But Yuna finds herself watching every customer who enters, cataloguing faces and body language. At lunch, a woman in an expensive coat sits in booth 3. She orders tea and nothing else, spending 2 hours making polite conversation with whoever will listen. Her questions are casual: who owns the place, what time Yuna usually leaves, whether she lives nearby. Yuna's chest tightened with recognition. This isn't a customer, this is surveillance. She serves the woman's 4th refill of tea and makes her own decision. In the back office, she dials Jay's private number. What's wrong? His voice was immediately alert. There's a woman here asking questions about me. Has been for 2 hours. Describe her. Yuna gives details: height, hair color, the expensive coat, and understated jewelry. Jay's silence stretches too long. She's not one of mine, he said finally. Then whose is she? I'm sending someone. Stay inside until they arrive. I can't just hide in the kitchen. I have customers. Yuna. 5 minutes. Then I'm going back to work. The line goes quiet. Then, there's a man in a grey hoodie across the street, reading a newspaper. He's with me. She peers through the window and spots him immediately. Young, alert, positioned with perfect views of both entrances. How long has he been there? Since you opened this morning. The knowledge that she's been watched all day should feel invasive. Instead, she finds it oddly comforting. Someone is paying attention. Someone cares if she's safe. The woman just left, she reports. My man will follow her. Make sure she's gone. 20 minutes later, a different figure appears in the grey hoodie's spot. This one is older, broader, with the same careful positioning. Yuna realizes she's looking at a changing of the guard. Professional protection that operates in shifts. Her phone buzzes with another text from Jay. Can we talk tonight? After you close? Here. Too exposed. I'll pick you up. I told you I don't need rides. This isn't about convenience. It's about safety. She stares at the message, weighing options. The smart thing would be to cut ties completely, disappear into the anonymity of a big city. But Kwan's people already know where she works, where she lives. Running might only make things worse. Okay, she types, but somewhere public. There's a coffee shop in Westwood, open late, lots of witnesses. The irony isn't lost on her. She's dating a crime boss who insists on meeting in public for her protection. Send me the address. That evening, Jay arrives at closing time in a different car, still expensive but more understated. He helps her lock up the restaurant, his presence somehow making the familiar routine feel safer. The coffee shop is busy despite the late hour. Students with laptops, couples on dates, groups of friends unwinding after work. Normal people living normal lives. They find a corner table with good sightlines. Jay positions himself facing the entrance again, a habit Yuna is beginning to recognize. Tell me about the woman, he says without preamble. She describes the afternoon in detail, the questions, the prolonged stay, the obvious intelligence gathering. Kwon is mapping your routine, Jay said. Learning your vulnerabilities. What does he want? Leverage. If he can't intimidate me directly, he'll go after people I care about. There's that phrase again. People I care about. Yuna feels her chest tighten with unwanted emotion. You barely know me. I know enough to want you safe. That's not an answer. Jay is quiet for a long moment, hands wrapped around his coffee mug. When he speaks, his voice was softer than usual. My wife died 3 years ago. Car accident. That wasn't an accident. His eyes found hers. She was 8 months pregnant. Yuna's breath caught. The careful control, the protective instincts, the way he carries grief, suddenly it all makes sense. I'm sorry. They used her to send a message, made it look like bad luck, wrong place at the wrong time. His jaw tightened. I won't let that happen again. Is that what I am? A replacement? No. The answer comes immediately, forceful. You're nothing like her. That's not why. He trails off, struggling with words. Yuna waits, sensing this conversation matters more than either of them planned. She was gentle, he said finally, accepted the life I gave her without question. You're different. You fight for what you want. Is that good or bad? It's honest. Something shifted in his expression. I respect honest. They sit in silence for a while, watching the ebb and flow of late-night customers. The normalcy feels precious now that Yuna understands how fragile it is. What happens next? She asked. I try to negotiate boundaries, make it clear you're not involved in business, and if negotiation doesn't work, then we handle it differently. The careful phrasing doesn't hide the implications. Violence as a last resort, but still a resort. I can't live in fear, she said, watching every shadow, jumping at every noise. You shouldn't have to, but I will, won't I? As long as she gestures between them, unable to name what this is. As long as we're connected, yes. There's always risk. His honesty is brutal and appreciated. No false reassurances, no promises he can't keep. I need time to think. Of course. He drives her home through quiet streets. At her building, he walks her to the entrance but doesn't follow her inside. The guard rotation continues. He said, you won't see them, but they're there. For how long? Until this is resolved. She wants to ask what resolution looks like, but she's not sure she wants to know the answer. The next few days pass in strange, suspended animation. Yuna goes to work, comes home, cares for Heija. Normal routine with an undercurrent of tension. She doesn't see the guards Jay mentioned, but sometimes she catches, glimpses a figure reading a book across the street, someone walking a dog who takes the same route past her building twice. On Thursday, she's closing the restaurant when she finds her storage room ransacked, boxes overturned, supplies scattered, and words scratched into her locker. Return what's ours. Her hands shake as she calls Jay's number. I'm on my way, he said after she describes the scene. He arrives within 10 minutes, accompanied by the man she recognizes as Seo. They examine the damage with professional calm, photographing everything before touching anything. They're escalating, Seo observes. His voice carries a slight accent, tone respectful but familiar. Testing response time. How long were you gone? Jay asked Yuna. 5 minutes, maybe less. I went to the bank across the street. They were watching, waiting for an opening. Jay's voice was tight with controlled anger. This can't continue. What are you going to do? Have a conversation with Kwon. Set clearer boundaries. Something in his tone makes her nervous. What kind of conversation? The kind that ends misunderstandings. Seo is examining her locker more closely. Hyungnim, look at this. He points to scratches near the lock mechanism, fresh gouges that suggest someone tried to force it open. What's in here? Jay asked. Nothing important. Spare aprons, some personal items. Yuna opens the locker, inventory and contents. Everything seems present until she reaches the back shelf. Wait, there was a photo here, of my parents. Describe it. Small frame, maybe 4 by 6. Picture from their wedding. Her chest tightened with violation and loss. Why would they take that? Jay and Seo exchange a look that speaks of experience with psychological warfare. Proof they were here, Seo said quietly. Evidence they can reach anything you value. The cruelty of it hits her like a physical blow. Her parents' photo, the only one she kept at work, stolen to make a point. "I want it back. We'll get it back," Jay said. His voice carried absolute certainty. "All of it ends tomorrow." "What happens tomorrow?" "I meet with Kwon. We establish new rules. And if he doesn't agree to your rules..." The silence stretched between them. Finally, Seo answers what Jay won't. Then we remind him why agreements matter. That night, Yuna can't sleep. She lies in bed listening to city sounds, wondering what morning will bring. Part of her wants to pack a bag and disappear. Another part wants to stand her ground and fight. But the strongest part, the one that terrifies her most, wants to trust the dangerous man who promises to keep her safe. At 3 a.m., her phone buzzes, a text from an unknown number. "He can't watch you every second." Her breath caught. She checks the locks, peers through the window blinds. The street looks empty, but shadows hide too much. Another text arrives with a photo attachment. Her parents' wedding picture, the frame cracked but recognizable. Some things break easily. Yuna's anger overwhelms her fear. She dials Jay's number despite the hour. What's wrong? He sounds fully awake, as if he wasn't sleeping either. She tells him about the messages, forwards the photo. His silence stretches long enough to scare her. "Pack a bag," he said finally, "for you and your grandmother. We're not running. You're not running. You're accepting protection until this is finished. I won't be kept like a prisoner. You'll be kept safe." There's a difference. Hija appears in the doorway, drawn by the conversation. She takes one look at Yuna's face and begins gathering her medications without being asked. "Where are we going?" Yuna asked. "Somewhere they can't reach you. Somewhere I can make sure nothing happens while I handle this." The careful phrasing doesn't hide the truth. He's taking them into his world, placing them under his protection in whatever fortress crime bosses use to keep precious things safe. "And after you handle it?" "After, you choose. Stay or go, with or without me. Your decision." The offer is more than she expected and less than she wants. Freedom to choose, but only after placing herself completely in his hands. How long? Few days, maybe a week. Hajar emerges from the bedroom with a small suitcase. "I'm ready," she said simply. "Halmione. Child, I survived war and poverty and your grandfather's snoring for 30 years. I can survive a few days with your young man's protection." The casual acceptance makes Yuna feel foolish for hesitating. If her 6-year-old grandmother can adapt to circumstances, surely she can too. "Okay," she said into the phone. "We'll be ready in 10 minutes. I'm already outside." Through the window, she sees the familiar sedan parked below. Jay stands beside it, phone pressed to his ear, eyes scanning the building and surrounding streets. Even at 3 a.m., even in crisis, he's careful about her safety. The realization does something complicated to her heart. 10 minutes later, they're driving through empty Los Angeles streets toward whatever sanctuary crime bosses use to protect the people they care about. Yuna watches the city flow past and wonders if she's making the biggest mistake of her life, or the smartest decision she's ever made. The car climbs into the hills above the city, following winding roads that grow progressively more isolated. Expensive houses give way to gated compounds, manicured lawns to natural chaparral. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Safe house. Private, secure, comfortable." Jay's voice was steady, professional. "You'll have your own space, rules you set, privacy you need. And you? And you?" Close enough to respond, far enough to give you room. The answer satisfies part of her worry while raising new questions. What does close enough mean in practice? How does a crime boss define appropriate distance from people he's protecting? They turn through gates that open automatically, drive up a long driveway lined with subtle security lights. The house at the end is modern and understated glass and wood and clean lines that blend with the hillside. It's beautiful. Hija says, the first words she's spoken since leaving their apartment. "It's safe," Jay said, which seems to be his highest standard for any space. He helps them inside, carrying their bags without being asked. The interior matches the exterior, expensive but not flashy, comfortable rather than ostentatious. "Guest wing is through here," he said, leading them down a hallway lined with large windows. 2 bedrooms, shared sitting area, kitchen access. He shows them each room with the careful attention of a host who wants his guests comfortable. The bedrooms are spacious and private, the sitting area cozy with books and a view of the city below. "I'll be in the main house," he said. "If you need anything, there's an intercom system. Or just call. What about during the day? Can we leave?" "For now, it's better if you stay here. After tomorrow." He pauses, choosing words carefully. "After tomorrow, things should be different." The meeting with Kwon, whatever conversation he's planning that will end this threat. "I want updates," Yuna said. "I want to know what's happening." "Of course, and I want my parents' photo back." "You'll have it." The quiet certainty in his voice makes her believe him. Whatever else happens tomorrow, Kwon will return what he stole. After Jay leaves, Yuna helps Heja settle into her room. Her grandmother moves slowly but seems comfortable with the changes. "Nice young man," Heja observes, testing the mattress. "Takes care of details. He's a criminal, Halmione. So was your grandfather, technically. Smuggled medicine during the war." Heja's smile was gentle but knowing. "Good men sometimes work outside the law. This is different." "Is it?" He protects people he cares about, provides for those who need help, uses his power to keep bad people from hurting innocents. Heja sits on the bed, hands folded. "Sounds like a good man to me." Yuna felt frustrated with her grandmother's easy acceptance. "It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. He could have let you face this alone. Instead, he's risking his own safety to keep you protected." Heja's voice was firm. "That's what good men do. And if someone gets hurt tomorrow, if his conversation with Kwon turns violent, then it turns violent to protect you. Would you rather he let them hurt you instead?" The blunt question stops Yuna's arguments. She knows what Kwon is capable of, the cruelty in his smile, the casual threats, the willingness to target innocent people for leverage. "I just want this to be over," she said quietly. "It will be, tomorrow or the next day. And then you decide what comes after." That night, Yuna lies in an unfamiliar bed, in an unfamiliar house, listening to silence that feels different from city sounds, safer, somehow, more controlled. Through the large windows, she can see lights scattered across Los Angeles below. Normal people sleeping in normal homes, unaware that in the hills above them, a waitress is learning what it means to be protected by someone who commands fear and respect in equal measure. Her phone sits silent on the nightstand. No threatening texts, no mysterious photos. For the first time in days, she feels truly safe. The realization that this safety depends entirely on one man's willingness to fight for her is both comforting and terrifying. Tomorrow will bring answers. Tomorrow will determine whether she can build a life with someone whose world operates by different rules than hers. Tonight, she sleeps better than she has in weeks. Morning arrives, with golden light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Yuna wakes disoriented, taking a moment to remember where she is and why. The safe house, the threats, the man who promised to end this today. She finds Heja already awake, sitting in the guest area with tea and a view of the city below. "Sleep well?" her grandmother asks. "Better than expected." Yuna joins her, accepting the offered cup. "You?" "Like a baby. Nothing like safety to help old bones rest." They sit in comfortable silence, watching Los Angeles wake up far below them. The normalcy feels precious after days of constant tension. "Where is he?" Yuna asks, realizing she hasn't seen or heard Jay this morning. "Left early. I saw his car go down the hill around sunrise." Yuna's chest tightened with worry she doesn't want to feel. "He didn't say goodbye. Probably didn't want to wake you." Heja's voice was gentle. "Men like him carry their burdens alone. What if something happens to him? Then you'll have bigger problems than saying goodbye." The blunt honesty makes Yuna laugh, despite her anxiety. Her grandmother's pragmatism cuts through emotional confusion every time. At noon, her phone rings. Jay's voice sounds tired but controlled. "How are you both doing?" "Fine. Safe." She pauses, then asks the question that's been eating at her. "How did your conversation go?" "It went." "That's not an answer." A longer pause. "Kwon agreed to new boundaries. Your photo has been returned to the restaurant." The harassment stops immediately. Relief floods through her, followed quickly by suspicion. "That's it? He just agreed?" Sometimes people need help understanding their position. The careful phrasing tells her everything he's not saying. Violence happened, or the credible threat of violence. Kwon backed down because the alternative was worse. Are you hurt? No, neither is anyone who matters. And Kwon? We'll be more careful about overreaching in the future. Yuna felt a complicated mix of relief and unease. The threat is ended, but at a cost she doesn't fully understand. Can we go home? Tomorrow, I want to make sure the message is received completely. Okay. She hesitates, then asks, will I see you tonight? If you want to. The uncertainty in his voice surprises her. This man who commands fear and respect sounds almost nervous about spending an evening with her. Dinner? Something normal? I'll cook. That evening, Jay arrives with grocery bags and an expression that might be nervousness. He moves around the kitchen with efficient calm, but Yuna notices the careful way he handles knives and the precise attention to temperatures. You cook often? She asks, watching him prepare vegetables with surgical precision. It's meditative. Helps me think. What do you think about? Problems that need solving. People who need protecting. His eyes found hers briefly. Complicated women who make simple men question everything. Yuna felt heat climb her neck. I'm not complicated. You're the most complicated person I've ever met. How? You work 2 jobs to care for someone else. You refuse help you clearly need. You stand up to dangerous men when smart people would run. He sets down the knife, turning to face her fully. You make me want things I thought I was done wanting. The honesty in his voice makes her chest tight. What kind of things? Normal things. Dinner conversations. Someone to worry about who isn't business. His voice was quiet, careful. Someone who chooses to stay instead of being too afraid to leave. The reference to his wife hangs between them. Yuna understands now the previous relationship was built on fear and protection. This one, whatever it becomes, has to be built on choice. I'm here, she said simply. For now, she agrees, but not because I'm afraid to leave. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe, or hope he's afraid to name. Hajar joins them for dinner, charming Jay with stories about Yuna's childhood stubbornness and independence. Yuna feels embarrassed by the attention until she notices how carefully he listens, as if memorizing every detail. She was 6 when she decided to walk to school alone. Hajar says, refilling his tea. Told me big girls don't need escorts. Did you let her? I followed at a distance. Made sure she was safe without making her feel managed. Jay nods, as if this approach makes perfect sense. Independence with backup. Exactly. Sometimes protection means staying close without getting in the way. Yuna realizes they're talking about more than childhood experiences. Her grandmother is giving Jay a blueprint for how to love someone who values freedom. After dinner, Hajar retires early, with pointed comments about giving young people privacy. Yuna and Jay find themselves alone on the balcony, city lights spread below them. Thank you, she said quietly. For dinner? For keeping us safe? For handling Kwon without, she struggles with words. For not making me watch violence. You shouldn't have to see that part of my life, but it is part of your life. It always will be. He's quiet for a long moment, hands resting on the balcony railing. Yes, it always will be. Can you live with someone who hates that part? Can you live with someone who uses it to protect people he loves? The word hangs between them. Love. Not care about or feel responsible for, but love. I don't know, she said honestly. That's fair. They stand in silence, each lost in thought. The night air is cool, scented with chaparral and distant ocean. Normal couples probably have normal conversations on nights like this. Plans for the future, dreams they want to share. But this isn't a normal relationship, and maybe that's okay. I want to try, she said finally. Try what? This, us, whatever it becomes. She turns to face him. But I need rules. What kind of rules? No lies. If I ask what happened, you tell me the truth. Agreed. No making decisions about my life without asking me first. Agreed. And no protection that feels like a cage. I won't be kept safe if it means giving up everything I am. He considers this longest. That's harder to promise. Sometimes keeping you safe might require temporary restrictions. Then we discuss. It, together. No unilateral decisions. What if there's no time for discussion? Then we deal with the consequences together afterward. Yuna realizes she's negotiating the terms of a relationship with a crime boss as if it's a business contract. The absurdity should be funny, but it feels necessary. Anything else? He asks. I want to meet your people, the ones who matter to you, who you trust. I want to understand your world without being sheltered from it. That's dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. I'd rather face it informed than protected by ignorance. He studies her face in the dim light. You're sure about this? No, but I'm sure about trying. He reaches for her hand, fingers intertwining with hers. Then we try. The next morning brings the return journey to their normal lives. Jay drives them home through familiar streets that look different now. Yuna sees potential threats in parked cars and lingering strangers, notices escape routes and exposed positions. It gets easier, Jay says, reading her expression. Learning to live with awareness without living in fear. How long did it take you? Years. But I started younger, and I chose this life. His voice was gentle. You shouldn't have to learn these things, but I will anyway, won't I? If we're together, this becomes my world too. Parts of it, the important parts. He glances at her. I'll try to keep the rest separate. Don't. Not completely. I want to understand what matters to you. At her apartment building, everything looks normal. No strange cars, no loitering figures. But Yuna notices the way Jay checks every angle before letting them get out. Back to work tomorrow? He asks, as they carry bags upstairs. Back to normal. Or as normal as it gets now. I'll have someone check the restaurant. Make sure Kwan's people understand the new boundaries. Visible protection? Invisible. You won't know they're there unless something goes wrong. Inside the apartment, Heja settles back into her chair with obvious relief. Home, for all its limitations, feels safer now than it did a week ago. Will I see you tonight? Yuna asks Jay. If you want to, but not here. Too many memories of threats. The coffee shop again. I know a place. Quiet, safe, good food. He pauses at the door. Normal enough for a normal evening. Nothing about us is normal. No, but we can try. After he leaves, Yuna unpacks their few belongings and tries to process everything that's changed. A week ago, she was a waitress with a predictable life and carefully controlled risks. Now she's dating a crime boss and negotiating the terms of a relationship that operates by completely different rules. Regrets? Heja asks, watching her fold clothes. Not regrets. Concerns, such as, what if I can't handle his world? What if the violence, even second-hand, changes me into someone I don't want to be? Then you leave. The door isn't locked. And if I can handle it, if I adapt too well, what does that say about who I really am? Heja is quiet for a moment, considering the question seriously. It says you're strong enough to love complicated people. That's not a character flaw. That evening, Jay takes her to a restaurant she's never seen despite living in Koreatown for years. It's small, tucked away on a quiet street, with the kind of atmosphere that suggests regular customers and family recipes. The owner greets Jay by name, leads them to a corner table without being asked. Other diners glance their way with recognition and respect, but no one approaches. They know you here, Yuna observes. I've been coming here for years. Mrs. Chen makes the best dumplings in the city. Is this where you bring all your dates? I don't date. Haven't in 3 years. His honesty is matter of fact. You're the first person I've brought here. Why me? Why now? Because you asked for normal. This is as normal as my life gets. The meal passes comfortably. They talk about ordinary things, favorite foods, childhood memories, books they've read. Conversation that any couple might have if one half weren't a crime boss and the other weren't learning to live with that reality. Tell me about your people, she says over dessert. The ones I should meet. Seo you've met. He's been with me for 8 years, manages security, handles personnel. Jay's voice carries obvious respect. If something happens to me, he's who you call. Cheerful thought. Practical thought. This life requires contingency plans. Who else? Dr. Kim. Handles medical situations that can't go through normal channels. Mrs. Park, who manages our legitimate businesses. A few others who matter. All Korean. Mostly. We tend to trust family, even chosen family, over outsiders. What am I? The question stops him mid-sentence. He sets down his spoon, considering. "You're something new," he said finally. "Someone who matters but isn't family yet. Someone who chooses to be here instead of being born into it. Is that good or bad? It's honest. And honesty is rare enough to be valuable." Walking back to his car, they passed the alley where this all began, where the injured man called him Hyungnim, and Yuna first understood what she was getting involved with. "Do you ever regret it?" she asks. "The life you chose?" "Every day. But regret doesn't change anything. What would you do differently?" "Start smaller, hurt fewer people, find another way to protect the things that mattered." He pauses. "But then I might never have met you. Would that be so bad?" "It would be the worst thing I could imagine." The simple honesty makes her chest tight. "Jay, I know this is complicated. I know it's not the life you planned." His voice was quiet, certain. "But I can't regret meeting you, even if it ends badly." "Why?" "Because you make me remember what it feels like to want something more than survival." They reach the car, but neither moves to get in. The moment feels suspended, balanced between possibility and fear. "I'm scared," she admits. "Of me. Of this. Of caring about someone whose life is built around violence and control. I'm scared too." "Of what?" "Of losing you, of failing to protect you, of becoming someone you can't love." The word again. Love. Not spoken directly, but acknowledged between them. "We're both scared," she said. "Yes. So what do we do?" "We try. Carefully. Honestly. Together." He reaches for her hand. "And we hope fear doesn't win." Driving home through familiar streets, Yuna realizes something has shifted. The decision is made, the commitment acknowledged even without words. Whatever comes next, violence or peace, danger or safety, they'll face it together. The thought terrifies and comforts her in equal measure. But for the first time in weeks, the future feels like something worth fighting for, and she's found someone worth fighting beside. 2 weeks later, life has settled into new rhythms. Yuna returns to work at the diner, but now she recognizes the careful choreography of protection around her. A customer who lingers too long with coffee and a view of the street. A delivery driver who always parks where he can watch both entrances. Invisible guardians, maintaining invisible boundaries. The knowledge should feel intrusive. Instead, it feels oddly comforting. Jay keeps his promise about involvement. He introduces her to Seo properly, not as a subordinate glimpsed in crisis, but as someone important enough to warrant respect. The man is quiet, intelligent, and completely devoted to his boss's safety. "He worries about you," Seo tells her over coffee while Jay handles business calls. "More than is probably wise." Why isn't it wise? Worry makes people sloppy, makes them take risks they shouldn't take. What kind of risks? The kind that come from caring more about someone else's safety than your own. Yuna felt unease creep up her spine. Has he done something stupid? Not yet. But caring people do stupid things when the person they care about is threatened. The conversation stays with her through the afternoon. She's learning that love, in Jay's world, isn't just an emotion. It's a vulnerability that enemies can exploit. That evening, she raises the concern with Jay over dinner. "Seo thinks you're taking unnecessary risks because of me." "Seo worries too much. Is he right?" Jay sets down his chopsticks, considering his answer carefully. "I'm more motivated to solve problems quickly. Sometimes that requires direct approaches." "What kind of direct approaches?" "The kind that end situations permanently instead of managing them temporarily." The euphemism doesn't hide the implication. Violence as problem-solving, escalation as efficiency. "I don't want you getting hurt because of me." "I won't." "You can't promise that." "I can promise I'll be careful, that I won't take stupid chances." His eyes found hers. "But I can't promise to let threats against you go unanswered. And if answering them puts you in danger, then we handle that when it happens." The conversation circles back to the same fundamental issue, his need to protect versus her fear of the cost. They're learning to live with the tension instead of resolving it. 3 days later, the tension becomes urgent. Yuna is closing the restaurant when Seo appears at the back door, expression grim. "We need to leave. Now." "What's wrong?" "Kwan's nephew came to town. He's not as reasonable as his uncle." Through the front window, she sees a black SUV parked across the street. Tinted windows, engine running. the kind of vehicle that means trouble. Where's Jay? Handling the situation. He wants you somewhere safe while he works. The safe house again? Somewhere better. Completely off their radar. This time, the destination is a small house in the mountains above Malibu. Remote, defensible, with views for miles in every direction. Hajar seems to take the disruption in stride, settling into the unfamiliar space with practiced adaptability. How often will this happen? Yuna asks Seo as he checks windows and sightlines. Hopefully never again after tonight. What happens tonight? Jay explains to Kwon's nephew why territorial disputes are bad for everyone's health. The careful phrasing doesn't hide the implications. More violence, more risks, more chances for everything to go wrong. Hours pass without communication. Yuna finds herself pacing, checking her phone, imagining worst-case scenarios. Hajar watches with the patience of someone who's lived through actual wars. Worrying won't change anything, her grandmother observes. I know. I can't help it. This is what loving dangerous men feels like. The waiting, the fear, the not knowing. Did you love a dangerous man? Your grandfather smuggled medicine during the war. Saved lives, but it could have gotten him killed. Hajar's smile was gentle with memory. Every night I waited, wondering if he'd come home. How did you stand it? I focused on why he did dangerous things instead of what might happen to him. Good reasons make the fear bearable. And if something had happened to him, then I would have grieved and been proud and found a way to continue. Hajar's voice was matter-of-fact. That's what you do when you love someone who risks himself for others. At midnight, Yuna's phone finally rings. It's finished, Jay says without preamble. Are you hurt? No. Kwon's nephew decided Los Angeles wasn't the right place for his particular business model. Meaning? Meaning he took the first flight back to New York and won't be returning. Relief floods through her, followed immediately by questions she's not sure she wants answered. How persuasive were you? Persuasive enough. Jay, no one died. No one will be permanently damaged. The problem is solved without creating new problems. His voice was tired but certain. Sometimes that's the best outcome possible. The next morning brings their return to normalcy. But Yuna finds herself studying Jay more carefully, looking for signs of whatever happened in that conversation with Kwon's nephew. His hands are unmarked, his movements unchanged. But there's something in his eyes that wasn't there before, a weariness that speaks of lines crossed and costs paid. Are we safe now? She asks over breakfast. As safe as anyone can be in this life. That's not really an answer. It's the only honest answer I can give. She's learning to live with partial answers and incomplete. Security. Learning that safety, in Jay's world, is relative rather than absolute. I want to meet Dr. Kim, she says, surprising herself with the decision. Why? Because he's important to you. Because I want to understand all the pieces of your world. Jay studies her face. He's not like Seo. He's seen the worst parts of what I do. Then I especially need to meet him. Dr. Kim turns out to be a small, precise man with gentle hands and eyes that have seen too much. His clinic operates in the grey space between legitimate medicine and the emergency care that crime bosses sometimes require. So you're the one, he says when Jay introduces them. He's been different since meeting you. Different how? More careful. Less willing to accept necessary risks. Dr. Kim's smile was knowing. Love makes people want to survive their choices. Is that good or bad? In moderation, good. Survival instinct keeps people alive. His expression grows serious. But excessive caution can be as dangerous as recklessness in this business. After they leave, Yuna asks Jay about the doctor's warning. He thinks I'm being too protective. Are you? Probably, but I can't help it. What scares you most? That something will happen to me, or that something will happen to you and leave me unprotected. The question stops him cold. They're walking through a park near the clinic, late afternoon sun filtering through trees. Both, he said finally, but mostly the second one. Why? Because if something happens to me, you'll be vulnerable until Seo can establish new arrangements. And there are people who would see that vulnerability as an opportunity. To hurt me? To use you. Against my successor, against the organization, against anyone who might feel obligated to protect you. The complexity of it overwhelms her. She's not just choosing to love a dangerous man, she's choosing to become a potential target for anyone who wants to hurt him or his people. How do other families handle this? Most don't. They keep business and personal completely separate, or they only get involved with people who are already part of the life. But you're doing something different. I'm doing something stupid. Thanks a lot. I'm doing something worth being stupid for. He stops walking, turns to face her. The question is whether you think it's worth it too. Standing in the fading light, surrounded by normal people living normal lives, Yuna feels the weight of the decision she's really making. Not just whether to date Jay, but whether to accept a permanent place in a world where violence is always possible and safety is never guaranteed. I think about leaving, she admits. Not because I don't care about you, but because this is so far from anything I ever imagined for myself. I know. And then, I think about what my life was like before. Safe, predictable, small. She takes his hand, fingers intertwining with his, and I realize small isn't enough anymore. What changed? You. Meeting you, seeing how you care for people, how you take responsibility for things that aren't really your responsibility. She pauses, finding the courage for complete honesty. Learning what it feels like to matter to someone who has the power to actually protect the things that matter to him. And that's enough? Even with all the complications? It's enough to try, to see what we can build together. Something shifts in his expression. Relief, hope, something deeper than either. There's something I need to tell you, he says. Her chest tightened with sudden fear. What? I love you. The simple declaration hits harder than any of the violence or threats they've survived. 3 words that change everything. I love you too, she says, and realizes she's been waiting weeks to say it. He kisses her then, gentle and careful and full of promise. Around them, the park continues its normal rhythms, joggers and dog walkers, and families enjoying the evening. But for Yuna, this moment becomes the dividing line between before and after. Before, when she was just a waitress trying to survive. After, when she becomes someone worth protecting by the most dangerous man in Los Angeles. What happens now? She asks against his lips. Now we figure out how to build a life together. In your world, or mine. In ours. 6 months later, Yuna wakes in a bed that's become familiar. Not the safe house, not her old apartment, but a place they chose together. A condo in mid-city with good security and better views, close enough to Koreatown for her work, but removed enough for the privacy Jay's life requires. Haija has her own room and seems to enjoy the comfort that comes with Jay's protection. She's gained weight, sleeps better, worries less about medical bills. The grandmother who raised Yuna through sheer determination now has the luxury of accepting care from someone else. He spoils you, Yuna tells her over breakfast. He takes care of family. That's what good men do. Family. Somehow, without formal declarations or legal ceremonies, they've become family. Chosen rather than born, but no less real for the choosing. Jay emerges from his office, phone calls finished for the morning. The routine has become comfortable. He handles business early. She handles the diner's lunch shift. They meet for dinner and quiet evenings. Problems? She asks, reading tension in his shoulders. Minor territorial dispute. Nothing that requires immediate attention. He kisses the top of her head, a gesture that's become automatic. How's your day looking? Easy shift, home by 3. I'll pick you up. I can take the bus. I know. I want to pick you up. They don't argue about protection anymore. She's learned to accept the careful choreography of his concern, and he's learned to frame it as preference rather than necessity. At the diner, work feels different now. She still serves coffee and takes orders, but customers treat her with a subtle deference that has nothing to do with her service. Word has spread, quietly and carefully, that she's under someone's protection. You look happy, Carlos observes during the lunch rush. I am happy. He treating you right. Better than right. Good. You deserve good. The simple acceptance warms her. Her co-workers have adapted to her changed circumstances without judgment or excessive curiosity. She's still Yuna, who makes great coffee and remembers everyone's preferences. The rest is background that doesn't affect their daily interactions. At closing, Jay arrives exactly on time. He waits while she finishes cleaning up, content to sit in the corner booth and watch her work. The attention should feel intrusive, but it doesn't. It feels cherished. "Good day?" he asks as they walk to his car. "Peaceful day. No emergencies, no drama." She takes his hand. "I like peaceful days." "Me too. Even when peace is boring. Especially when peace is boring." They drive home through familiar streets, past the coffee shop where they met and the hospital where he waited during Hijar's episode. The geography of their relationship is written across Los Angeles' ordinary places, made significant by shared experiences. "I have something for you," he says as they pull into their building's garage. "What kind of something?" "The kind that requires trust." Upstairs, he hands her a small velvet box. Inside is a key, ornate, old-fashioned, clearly significant. "What does it open?" she asks. "Everything. My office, my accounts, my emergency plans." His voice was steady but careful. "If something happens to me, that key gives you access to whatever you need to stay safe." "Jay, I'm not planning on anything happening. But this life requires contingencies. What about CO? Your other people? They'll help you, but this makes it official. You're not just someone I care about, you're someone with standing in my organization." The weight of the key in her palm represents more than metal and access. It represents complete trust, absolute inclusion in the life he's built. "Are you proposing?" she asks. "Not exactly, but not proposing either." "What does that mean?" "It means I love you enough to give you power over everything I've built. It means I trust you enough to make you part of the foundation instead of just someone I protect." His eyes found hers. "It means if you want to marry me, I'm ready. And if you need more time, this key proves I'm not going anywhere." Yuna felt her breath catch. Marriage to Jay wouldn't be a ceremony and a dress and normal wedding planning. It would be a formal merging of lives that operate by different rules than most couples follow. What would marriage mean? In practical terms, legal protection, shared resources, automatic authority in medical emergencies. His voice was matter of fact. And enemies who would think twice about targeting you because hurting a boss's wife brings different consequences than hurting his girlfriend. More protection, different protection, more permanent protection. And more permanent targets? Yes. That too. The honesty is brutal and appreciated. No romantic promises that love conquers all, just clear-eyed assessment of costs and benefits. "I need to think about it." "Of course." That evening, she discusses the offer with Hajar while Jay handles phone calls in his office. "He's asking you to marry him," her grandmother says simply. "He's asking me to become part of his organization." Same thing, in his world. Marriage isn't just personal, it's political, strategic, a statement about commitment and alliances. Does that bother you? Should it? You're not just marrying a man, you're joining a family. That's how it's always worked, even in normal circumstances. This isn't normal circumstances, no. But you're not normal people. Hijar's smile was gentle. Normal people don't find love by surviving threats together. Are you saying I should accept? I'm saying you should decide what you want your life to look like 5 years from now. Then choose the path that leads there. That night, Yuna lies awake thinking about futures and possibilities. She pictures herself at 33, 38, 45. In some versions, she's still a waitress living carefully on the margins of safety. In others, she's built something larger and more complicated, but infinitely more meaningful. "Can't sleep?" Jay asks softly. "Too much to think about." "The key? The everything. Marriage, family, the life we'd build together." She turns to face him in the darkness. "What happens if I say yes and then can't handle it? What if this world changes me into someone I don't want to be?" "Then we figure it out together. Adaptation, compromise, whatever it takes. And if I say no, then nothing changes. We keep building what we have now, but it would change things. I'd always be the woman who couldn't commit completely, or you'd be the woman who knew her limits and respected them. The lack of pressure makes the decision both easier and harder." He's not asking her to choose between him and safety. He's asking her to choose between two different kinds of life with him. "I want to say yes," she admits, but I'm scared of who I might become. Scared of getting comfortable with violence and power and moral compromise. What if I promise to help you stay yourself, to notice if you're changing in ways you don't like, You'd do that? I'd do anything to keep you happy, even if it meant calling out behavior you didn't notice yourself. The promise settles, something anxious in her chest. Protection that includes protection from herself. Ask me again, she says. Ask you what? Whatever you were really asking with that key. He's quiet for a moment, then sits up in bed. Even in darkness, she can see him gathering courage for formal words. Una Park, will you marry me? Will you let me love you and protect you and build something permanent together? His voice was steady, certain. Will you trust me with your whole life instead of just pieces of it? Yes. The word comes out easier than she expected. Simple answer to a complicated question. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you. I'll trust you. I'll figure out how to be happy in your world without losing myself. He kisses her then, deep and grateful and full of promise. Outside their window, Los Angeles continues its restless existence, but inside their room, everything important has been decided. When? He asks against her lips. Soon, before I lose courage. You won't lose courage. How do you know? Because courage is who you are. It's why I fell in love with you. 2 months later, they marry in a small ceremony at the house in the hills. Dr. Kim performs the service. Seo serves as witness, and Hyeja cries happy tears that she insists are just allergies. No extended family, no elaborate reception, no traditions borrowed from a world that doesn't understand their choices. Just promises spoken in front of people who matter, commitments made with full knowledge of what they mean. You may kiss your wife, Dr. Kim says with a smile. Jay does, gentle and thorough and completely unself-conscious about the small audience. When they break apart, Una sees her future in his eyes, complicated, dangerous, absolutely worth fighting for. The reception is dinner at home, prepared by a chef Jay hired for the occasion. Nothing elaborate, just good food and quiet celebration. Hyeja tells embarrassing stories about Una's childhood. Seo toasts their happiness with surprising eloquence, and Dr. Kim offers medical advice disguised as marriage counseling. The secret, he tells them over dessert, is remembering that love is a choice you make every day, not a feeling that happens to you. Even when things get difficult, Una asks, especially when things get difficult. After the guests leave, Una and Jay sit on their balcony watching the city sparkle below. She wears a simple white dress, he wears a dark suit, and they both wear gold bands that feel heavier and more significant than their size suggests. Any regrets? He asks. About marrying you? None. About anything? About how long it took us to get here? About how scared I was of wanting this? Fear was rational. This isn't exactly a conventional choice. No, but it's our choice. Yes, it is. They sit in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, watching their city breathe and pulse beneath them. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new threats, new tests of their commitment. But tonight, they're just a married couple enjoying the peace they've fought to build together. I love you, Mrs. Ryu, Jay says quietly. I love you too, husband. The words feel foreign and familiar, frightening and perfect. She spent months learning to live with uncertainty, but this one thing is absolutely certain: they belong together. Whatever comes next, they'll face it as a family. And that's worth everything it cost to find. 1 year later, the morning routine has become sacred. Jay makes coffee while Una checks on Hyeja, who's learned to sleep late and enjoy the luxury of leisurely mornings. They eat breakfast together at the kitchen island, sharing newspaper sections and comfortable silence. The new waitress is working out well, Una reports. Minji thinks she'll be ready to handle lunch shifts alone by next month. Good. You've been working too much. I like working. I like you working. I also like you resting. She's reduced her hours at the diner gradually, not because Jay asked, but because other interests have emerged. A Korean language program for immigrant children. Fundraising for cardiac research in Hyeja's honor. Small projects that use skills she didn't know she possessed. Seo called, Jay says, refilling her coffee. The quarterly reports look good. No territorial issues. Revenues stable. Boring is good in your business? Boring is excellent in my business. The transformation has been gradual but noticeable. Jay's operations have become more legitimate, less dependent on activities that require violence to maintain. Not completely clean, that would be impossible without abandoning everything he's built, but cleaner than before. Dr. Kim wants to expand the clinic, she says. Add a pediatric wing. What does he need? Funding, permits, someone to navigate city bureaucracy without attracting the wrong kind of attention. Done. The easy agreement still surprises her sometimes. Jay's resources, carefully applied, can solve problems that would be impossible for most people to address. Power used for good feels different than power used for protection or control. I have news, she says, suddenly nervous about words she's practiced for days. What kind of news? The kind that changes everything again. He sets down his coffee, attention completely focused. Good changes or bad changes? Good, I think, I hope. She takes a breath, finds courage. I'm pregnant. The silence stretches long enough to make her worried. Then his face transforms surprise, becoming joy, becoming something deeper and more complex. Are you sure? 3 tests. Doctor's appointment scheduled for next week. He stands, comes around the island, takes her face in his hands. How do you feel? Terrified, happy, worried about timing and safety and whether we're ready. We'll be ready. How can you be so sure? Because we've been ready for everything else. We'll figure this out too. Hajar emerges from her room, takes one look at their faces, and starts crying. Happy tears? Yuna asks. The happiest. I'm going to live to see great-grandchildren. The certainty in her voice makes it feel more real. They're not just having a baby, they're adding to a family that's already survived impossible circumstances. Boy or girl? Hajar asks. Too early to tell. Does it matter? Not even a little. Healthy is all that matters. That afternoon, they tell Seo and Dr. Kim. Both men react with the same mixture of joy and immediate concern for security implications. The house will need upgrades, Seo says. Better monitoring, additional exits, safe room specifications, and medical preparations, Doctor. Kim adds, emergency protocols, backup facilities, contingency planning for various scenarios. Yuna listens to them, plan around threats she hopes never materialize. This is what raising children in Jay's world requires: constant awareness of risks balanced against determination to live normally. Will our child be safe? She asks Jay that evening. Safer than most, protected by people who know how to protect what matters. And when they're old enough to ask questions about what you do, we'll tell them the truth, that families take care of each other, and sometimes that requires difficult choices. What if they want nothing to do with this life? Then we support their choices, make sure they have options we didn't have. And if they want to be part of it, then we make sure they understand what that means before they decide. The future feels simultaneously more precious and more fragile. They're not just building a life for themselves anymore, they're creating a world safe enough for children to grow up in. 7 months later, Yuna holds their daughter for the first time. Elena Ryu arrives healthy and loud, with her father's dark hair and her mother's stubborn chin. Jay cries when he holds her, careful hands cradling something infinitely more precious than everything else he's fought to protect. She's perfect, he whispers. She's ours, Yuna corrects. Hajar, despite her age and recent health scares, insists on being the primary babysitter. I raised one stubborn granddaughter successfully, she declares. I can handle one more. The first months are exhausting and wonderful. Elena sleeps poorly, eats constantly, and seems to find the entire world fascinating. Yuna learns to function on minimal sleep, and Jay learns to change diapers with the same precision he brings to everything else. She has your temperament, Yuna observes during a 3 a.m. feeding. How can you tell? She's calm unless something's wrong, and when something's wrong, she makes sure everyone knows about it immediately. That's not temperament. That's intelligence. The house fills with baby equipment and the sound of laughter. Seo learns to speak in softer tones when Elena is napping. Doctor. Kim makes house calls to check on everyone's health. Their chosen family adapts to include its newest member. Are you happy? Jay asks one evening as they watch Elena sleep in her crib. Happier than I knew was possible. Even with all the complications? Because of the complications, normal families don't get this level of protection and devotion. Normal families don't need it. No. But we're not normal. She takes his hand. And I wouldn't change anything. Standing in their daughter's nursery, surrounded by everything they've built together, Yuna realizes the journey that started with a spilled cup of coffee and a blind date has brought her exactly where she belongs. Complicated, dangerous, absolutely worth every risk they took to find each other. "I love you," she says simply. "I love you too." Elena stirs in her sleep, and they both freeze until she settles again. Outside, Los Angeles continues its restless existence, but inside their home, everything important is safe and sound, and exactly as it should be. They're finally home.